Okay, I forgot to record, so video starting late. We're talking about the life during the Great Depression, Hoover's responses, FDR's responses, and now how this shows the government is changing in the 1930s. So the government is hiring workers through things like the CCC. What did the CCC do?
Like roads and building trails.
Roads, trails, conservation. What about the WPA? What did that do?
That was
Some construction, jobs in the arts, photography, painters. Okay, there's lots of other programs in hiring workers. Those are two of the biggest ones. So hiring workers, they also made regulations. They made rules for businesses or rules for how the system should work. One of those we should know is the SEC. And remember what that one did? That's the NRA. We're gonna them too. They set prices and wages for factories. Okay, that's the NRA. SEC, one of the ways I remember what the SEC stands for, the S, same word as stock. Okay, that has to do with the stock market exchange. So they make rules for the stock market. The S doesn't actually stand for stock, it stands for Securities and Exchange Commission. That's stock, rules for the stock market. Okay, they're making rules for businesses, rules for stocks to make sure this doesn't happen again. Okay, 1800s, they don't make rules, right? How about, let's just say, like, I don't have a good category name for this, so let's just go with like direct help. What was Social Security? Yep, retirement money. What about the FDIC? What did that do? Yep, protects money in banks. Right? Government had never done something like this before. Now it's doing this. It's a big change. So let's just compare this to like the 1800s, right? So this is. What if we look at like our last unit? The Gilded Age. Like in the 1880s, how did the government respond to businesses or economic problems? Like, what was the role there? Yeah, what was that called? When the laissez-faire. Laissez-faire means no rules for businesses made by the government. Government's not going to make rules for the businesses. They're going to let businesses do what they want. In fact, they're going to go on and help businesses by doing things, giving loans for businesses. Right? Loans for businesses. Like railroad companies. They gave loans and and land grants out to businesses, to railroad companies, so that they could grow. During the Gilded Age, the government supported businesses in labor disputes. So in the 1800s, if there was a labor strike by a union, the government would almost always support the business. Compared to in the 1930s, where here we're making rules for businesses. Another group that was created during the New Deal was the National Labor Relations Board that supported labor unions. So we see a shift here where the government is supporting labor unions in the 1930s, whereas before they would have supported the business. Okay. So we see this shift from 1800s government to 1930s government. Okay. This is a big shift between these time periods. And I think that will help you with your shift. Questions about any of this? Let me talk about another thing for short answer. Okay. We've talked a lot about different groups of people and how they're impacted and how their lives change during this time period. We've talked a lot about how women are impacted. What can we say about women's lives in the 1920s and how they've changed? What's the big thing we've talked about in this unit for women in the 1920s? What was that called? Flappers. We should talk about flappers. Flappers were the symbol of the new independent woman. It was shown in the new movies of the time, and that was kind of like this idealized woman. We see it a lot in urban cities. The image of a flapper. We don't really see the image of a flapper in like rural towns, rural America. That's still kind of seen as like, oh, women don't wear short dresses and stuff like that in the small towns. So more independence in 1920s. Like women can go out and go to nightclubs. Women can go out and drink alcohol. In fact, what's the big change with alcohol in the 1920s? Prohibition, right? Where they made it illegal to drink. And so now, in the 1800s, men would go off and drink in taverns or bars and pretty much be a male only activity. But then when the bars went underground into the speakeasies and it was illegal, then all of a sudden women started joining. And so we see this kind of like women drinking in these spaces with men never really happened before. Women can go and drink alcohol, go to nightclubs. Women can go and drive cars on their own. Okay, remember cars are coming out during this time. More women are working outside the home. Still, a majority of women are working at the home. I think the percentage here is still about 30%, but it is increasing, slowly increasing over time. So what have been big changes leading up to flappers? Like this happens in the 1920s. What happens before the flappers that made this possible? Women's suffrage is the biggest one, right? That's the 19th Amendment. With voting rights, women are able to not only have economic independence, but political independence, to have a perspective that is listened to and a part of the conversation. That's going to be the biggest one. We also see involvement in World War I. And so that could look like nurses, factory workers. Okay. And actually, their involvement in World War I is, for some people, a reason why voting rights happened. As an idea of without women and their involvement in the war, we wouldn't have won, or not as quickly, and that they should be given, more citizenship rights in response to that. Talk all about the National Women's Party, okay, the women's suffrage movement, then itself, not only fighting for voting rights, but increased rights for women. Like Alice Paul, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. I do want to mention too, in the 1920s, alongside change for women, how businesses sell to individuals is also changing. First of all, remember, the standard of living is improving during this time period, where there's this societal expectation that, you should get a car, you should get a radio. And there's almost this pressure to buy stuff. There's cars, radios, appliances. Can you believe it? There's this new appliance that will wash your clothes. You don't have to do anything. You just put it in the machine and it washes it for you. This is mind blowing, and you can go and buy it. How are most middle class, working class Americans buying this stuff? Money to do it. But businesses know that you have a limited amount that you can buy, even on credit, and so they want you to buy their stuff. And so we have more more advertisement, especially in color. As more Americans are buying cars and are out on the road, they put up billboards for the first time. And again, today we kind of see this as if I'm driving down 94, duh, this is a part of life. But in the 1920s, this is brand new. All of a sudden, or in the 1800s, there's no signs whatsoever, right? It's just nature when you're out in rural areas, and all of a sudden now there's signs everywhere. They're gigantic. You've never seen these before. The environment is changing, right? And this is just showing lives are changing. So we see societal pressure to buy. There's more advertisement. some advertisements focused on women. Knowing that women will be, you know, if it's appliances, focused on like, you know, hey, you know, this is a really good improvement for your home. Or even for flappers who are new independent women, hey, we're going to appeal to you to buy a new car, right? So you can have independence through this car, right? So sometimes I'll focus on women too, to sell to them, to get them to spend it. Okay. I think all of that will be helpful on the writing. Are there any questions before I finish up for today? Anything else you want me to talk about from your study guide, or you're not sure about something? Okay, we'll end the Zoom session.